Hello, everybody, and welcome to chapter 42 of the book of Bereishit as we continue to travel through Tanach. Chapter 42 has 38 verses and it's found in the Koran Sex Chumash on page 282 and 283. In this chapter, we read about how the famine has reached Canaan, forcing Yaakov to send his sons down to Egypt to buy food. He keeps Binyamin back to be able to keep him safe, and the other 10 brothers all descend together. Yosef recognizes his brothers immediately, but they do not recognize him. He speaks harshly to them and accuses them of being spies and imprisons them briefly. Yosef demands they bring Binyamin to Egypt as proof of their honesty, keeping Shimon behind as a hostage. As the brothers leave, they discover their money mysteriously returned in their sacks. Shaken, they interpret their suffering as punishment for how they treated Yosef years earlier. Yaakov is devastated by the loss of Yosef, the imprisonment of Shimon, and the demand to send Binyamin down to Egypt. And the chapter closes with fear, guilt, and unresolved tension, which is only going to continue to escalate in future chapters. With that introduction in mind, let us start with chapter 42, verse 1. Vayar Yaakov saw ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim, that there was grain in Egypt. Vayomer Yaakov levanav, and Yaakov said to his sons, Lama tisra'u, why do you keep looking at one another? Verse 2, Vayomer, and he said, Hine shomati ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim. I've heard that there is grain in Egypt. Rudu shama, go down there. Veshivu lanu misham, and buy some for us. V'nichyeh v'lo namus, so that we may live and not die. Verse 3, Vayerdu achei Yosef asara, so 10 of Yosef's brothers went down, lishbor bar mitzrayim, to buy grain in Egypt. Verse 4, Ves Binyamin achi Yosef, Binyamin, Yosef's brother, lo shalach Yaakov esechav. Yaakov did not send him down with the brothers, ki omar pen yikraenu ason, for he was afraid that harm might come to him. Verse 5, Vayavo b'nei Yisrael, lishbor b'soch habaim. So Yisrael's sons came to buy provisions among the arrivals, ki haya harav be'eretz Canaan, because the famine had reached as far as the land of Canaan. Verse 6, V'Yosef hu hashalit al haaretz. Yosef was the viceroy over the land, hu hamashbir l'chol am haaretz. He was the provider to all the people of the land. Vayavo achei Yosef, Yosef's brothers came, vayishtachavu lo apayim arza, and they bowed down to him, their faces to the ground. A lot to unpack. First of all, the fact that these 10 brothers bowed down to him is a fulfillment of his first dream. And second of all, the rabbis point out that by telling us Yosef is ruling over the land of Egypt, the Torah is hinting to us that he is actually pulling some strings behind the scenes to bring about the need for the brothers to approach him. Yosef had projected that the brothers would need to come down to Mitzrayim to buy provisions. And so our rabbis point out that he locked up all of the storehouses and decided that all sales would have to go through him. And in that way, they would not be able to go to any of the other storehouses and conduct business with any other people who are overseeing the distribution of grain. And instead, they would have to come and do business with Yosef himself. Verse 7, Vayar Yosef esechav vayakirein. Yosef recognized his brothers as soon as he saw them. Vayisnaker alehem. But he acted like a stranger to them. Vaydaber itam kashos, and he spoke harshly with them. He put on a fake voice so that they would not realize that it was him. Vayomer alehem, and he said to them, Me'ayin basem, where are you from? Vayomeru, and they said, Me'eretz Canaan lishbar ochel, they're from the land of Canaan to buy food. Verse 8, Vayakar Yosef esechav, Yosef recognized his brothers, Vahem lo hikiruhu, and they did not recognize him. And the rabbis suggest that one of the reasons why they didn't physically recognize him is because he had a beard. And this seems somewhat perplexing. For anyone familiar with Superman, it may have always been confusing that people wouldn't realize that the only difference between Clark Kent and Superman was a pair of glasses. And so to suggest here that the only reason that the brothers didn't recognize him was because Yosef had a beard seems quite strange. But our rabbis point out that this goes to show how dangerous it can be to have a fixed bias in your mind. It wasn't just that they couldn't recognize him because he physically looked a little bit different. The reason they couldn't recognize him is because They couldn't think in their wildest dreams that the man standing before them would actually be Yosef. There was just too much at stake to be able to tell themselves that he had actually been successful and had actually stayed alive. Verse 9, Vayizkar Yosef, es hachalamos asher chalam lahem. Yosef remembered the dreams he had dreamt about them. Vayomer aleihem, and he said to them, Muraklim atem, you are spies, liroses ervas haaretz basem, you have come to see where our land is exposed. And one of the reasons why he has to go down this route is because he needs Binyamin to come down to Mitzrayim. He needs Yaakov to be able to come down to Mitzrayim as well, not only to fulfill the second dream, but also to be able to be reunited with his family. And so he can't just come clean at this point. There has to be more to the story. There also has to be some kind of resolution and some kind of demonstration that they have learnt from their lessons. And so as we go into these next couple of chapters and we read about all the ways in which Yosef seems to manipulate the situation, we again have to remind ourselves to look at this story with a sensitivity to the fact that we are actually dealing with tzaddikim. We are dealing with righteous people and not just going through some dramatic storyline. Verse 10, Vayomer Elav, and they said to him, Lo Adoni, no, my lord, Va'avadecha ba'u lishpa ochel, your servants have come to buy food. Verse 11, Kulanu b'nei ish echad nachnu, we are all sons of the same man. Kenim anachnu, we are honest men. Lo hayu avadecha maraglim, your servants are not spies. Verse 12, Vayomer Aleihem, and he said to them, Lo, no, ki ervas haaretz basem liros. You have come to see where our land is exposed. Verse 13, Vayomeru shnei masa avadecha avachim anachnu. And they said, we were once 12 brothers. B'nei ish echad be'eretz Canaan. We were the children of one man in the land of Canaan. V'hinei hakaton es avinu hayom. The youngest is now with our father, v'ha'echad einenu, and one is gone. Verse 14, Vayomer Aleihem Yosef, and Yosef said to them, Hu asher dibarti aleichem lemor meraglim atem. It is as I said to you, you are spies. And our rabbis point out that the reason why he's still able to say this is because they've left one brother behind. Why would they have done that? That's a very odd tactic. It must be that they are not telling the truth. Obviously, deep down, he knows exactly what's going on. Verse 15, Bezos tibachenu. With this, you will be tested. Chefara im teitzu mizeh, ki im bevo achichem hakaton hena. By Pharaoh's life, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Verse 16, Shilchu mikem echad, let one of you go, v'yikach es achichem, and fetch your brother. Va'atem he'asru, the rest of you will remain confined here. V'yibochanu devreichem ha'emes itachem. This will test whether or not you are telling the truth. V'im lo, and if not, chefaro ki meraglim atem. If not, by Pharaoh's life, you are spies. Verse 17, Vayesof osam el mishmar shloshes yamim. He had them placed in custody for 3 days. Verse 18, Vayomer aleihem Yosef bayom ashlishi. Yosef said to them on the 3rd day, Zos asu v'chyu. If you do this, you will live. Es ha'elohim ani yareh, for I am a God-fearing man. Verse 19, Im kenim atem, if you are honest, achichem echad ye'aseh beveis mishmarchem, let one of your brothers stay here in prison, va'atem, and you, lechu haviu shever ra'avon bateichem, and the rest of you go and take back grain for your starving households. Verse 20, Vesachichem hakaton taviu elai, then bring your youngest brother to me, ve'amnu divreichem v'lo samusu, so that your words can be verified and you will not die. Vayasu chen, and they agreed. Verse 21, Vayomeru ish el achiv, and they said to one another, Aval hashemim anachnu alachinu, we are guilty because of what we did to our brother. Asher ra'inu tsaras nafsho, we saw his suffering, for his chanano eleinu, when he pleaded with us, v'lo shamanu, but we did not listen. Al kain ba eleinu hatzara hazos, this is why this trouble has come upon us. Verse 22, Vayan Reuven osam lemor, then Reuven answered them, saying, Halo amarti aleichem lemor, Al techetu vayeled v'lo shmatem. Did I not tell you not to sin against the boy, but you would not listen? V'gam damo hinei nidrash. Now comes the reckoning for his blood. Verse 23, V'hem lo yadu ki shomer Yosef. They did not know that Yosef was listening. Ki hamelitz benosam. because an interpreter stood between them. There was an assumption that as a ruler of Egypt, he would not be able to speak Lashon HaKodesh. He would not be able to speak the holy language of Hebrew. And because he placed an interpreter there, they assumed that Yosef does not really understand. But the interpreter was really just a facade. In fact, our rabbis teach it was his son who was the interpreter. And he knew how to speak ancient Hebrew because Yosef had taught it to him. Verse 24, Vayisov me'aleihem vayevk. Yosef turned away from them and cried, Vayashav aleihem. And he returned to them, Vaydaber aleihem, and then said to them, Vayikach meitam es Shimon, Vayesor asor le'eneihem. And he took Shimon from them and placed him in chains before their eyes. And our rabbis point out that he takes Shimon to be kept prisoner because it was Shimon who arranged for him to be thrown into the pit. So now Yosef was throwing Shimon into a pit. Vaitzav Yosef, Yosef gave orders, Vayim'alu es kaleihem bar, he gave orders to fill their bags with grain, Ulahashiv kaspeihem ish el sako, and to put each man's money back in his sack, Velaseis lahem seder laderech, and to give them provisions for the journey, Vayas lahem kain. And this was done for them. Verse 26, Vayisuu es shivram al chamorehem, they loaded their grain on their donkeys, Vayelchu misham, and they left from there. Verse 27, Vayiftach ha'echad es sako, one of them opened his sack, Laseis mispor lachamoro b'malon, to feed his donkey at the place where they stopped for the night. Vayares kaspor v'hinehu b'fiam tachto, he saw his money right there at the top of his pack. Verse 28, Vayomer elechav, and he said to his brothers, Hushav kaspi, v'gam hinei bam tachti, my money has been returned, it's there in my pack. Vayetze libam, their hearts sank. Vayecherdu ish el achiv leimor, they turned to one another in fear, saying, Mazos asai Elohim lanu, what is this that Hashem has done to us? Verse 29, Vayavo el Yaakov avihem arza Canaan, they came to their father in the land of Canaan, Vayagidu lo es kol hakarososam leimor, and they told him all that had happened to them. Verse 30, Diber ha'ish adonai ha'aretz etanu kashos, they said, the man who is the Lord of the land spoke to us harshly. Vayiten osanu kamaraglim es ha'aretz, he accused us of spying on the land. Verse 11, Vanomer elav keinim anachnu, we said to him, we are honest men. Lo hayinu meraglim, we are not spies. Verse 32, Shneim asar anachnu achim b'nei avinu, we were 12 brothers, sons of the same father. Ha'echad einenu, one is gone. V'hakaton hayom es avinu be'eretz Canaan, and the youngest is now with our father in Canaan. Verse 33, Vayomer eleinu ha'ish adonai ha'aretz, then the man who is the Lord of the land said to us, V'zos eida ki chenim atem, this is how I will know that you are honest men. Achichem ha'echad hanichu iti, leave one of your brothers with me, Ves ravon batechem kachu v'alechu, and take something for your starving households and go. Verse 34, V'haviu es achichem hakaton elai, then bring your youngest brother to me. Ve'eda'a ki lo meraglim atem, and then I will know that you are not spies. Ki chenim atem, but you are honest men. Es achichem eten lachem ve'es ha'aretz tischaru, and then I will give you back your brother, and you can trade in the land. Verse 35, Vayihi he merikim sakehem, they began emptying their sacks. V'hine ish tzoror kaspor b'sako, and there in each one's sack was his money bag. Vayiru es tzororos kaspehem hema va'avihem vayira'u, when they and their father saw the money bags, they became afraid. Verse 36, Vayomer aleihem Yaakov avihem, Yaakov their father said to them, O see, shikaltem, I am the one who you bereaved. Yosef enenu, Yosef is gone. The Shimon enenu, Shimon is gone. Ves Binyamin tikachu alai hayuchulana. Now you want to take Binyamin? All this I must suffer? Verse 37, Vayomer Reuven el aviv lemor, Reuven said to his father, Es shnei vonai tamis, im lo avienu elecha, you may kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Tana oso al yadi, va'ani ashivenu elecha, entrust him to my care, and I will bring him back to you. And what we see here is Reuven stepping up and taking responsibility for Binyamin, which he had failed to do at the time of Yosef's sale. Verse 38, Vayomer and Yaakov said, Lo yered b'ni machem, my son will not go down with you. Ki achiv meis, his brother is dead. V'hu levado nishar, and he alone is left. Ukra'ahu ason baderech, asher telchuva, Should disaster befall him on the journey, v'horadetem es sevasi biyagon sha'olah, you will bring down my grey head in grief to Sheol. Or in other words, you will send me down to the grave. And that brings us to the end of chapter 42. Really, if you look at the way the Torah is written, chapter 43 is really the continuation of the same paragraph, of the same story. Nevertheless, this is the way the chapters are broken up. And so we pause the dramatic story here. And when we learn chapter 43 together, we will continue the story and see what happens when Binyamin and the brothers go back down to Egypt and have another run in with Yosef. I look forward to learning that with you. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.